welcome to Take Two Radio. I'm Pam, your host, and with me today co-hosting is my good buddy, Mike Lidskin. Hello,
Hey.
Mike. How are you?
Hey, Pam. Pam, great. How are you doing?
Yay, wonderful. It's a beautiful day in Chicago. I can't complain.
Yeah, really. Are you guys finally getting some spring there?
We are. Actually, it skipped spring and went into summer.
How about that?
You know how it is in Chicago.
I know. What do they always say? If you don't like the weather, wait a minute. That's the old saying there.
That's right. That's right. Most recently, one day it was, I think, 90 degrees, and then in the middle of the night it went down to like 34, 37. And then
Wow.
the next day it was like a high of 45. So, yeah, wait a minute and it'll definitely change.
That's amazing. That's Mother Nature doing mood swings.
Most definitely. So let's check the weather with our special guest today. We welcome award-winning singer-songwriter, guitarist, and music director, John-Enghauser. Welcome, John.
Thank you. How are you guys?
You're welcome.
Hey, great. Nice to meet you, John.
Nice to meet you, too.
So how's your weather out your way?
It's actually raining as we speak. I guess you could say spring arrived in a way. We've had it's slowly but surely, but at least we're having a spring. We've been having some nice weather, and it's been kind of hovering between high 50s and low 70s. But like last year, I felt like it just went straight to summer, like you said. I don't think we even had a spring. So yeah, I'm not complaining.
No, as long as it's not snow, I'm happy, you know.
It's a good way to look at it, right?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of snow, and of course I live in the wrong state to be saying that, so.
You sure do.
Illinois is kind of noted for snow, yeah.
Yeah. Someday I'm moving by you, Mike. I swear I am.
Yeah, we don't get much snow here in Sacramento. I think last time we saw snow, I wasn't living here.
Oh, lucky you.
I know, huh?
You go at the right time.
Yep.
Well, John, we always like to start out the show with letting our listeners get to know a little bit about you, like your background. How did you get started into music, and who or what inspired you?
Okay. Well, let's see. I got to dig way back for that one. By the way, it just occurred to me we've got the West Coast, Midwest, and East Coast all represented here, so that's good. It's good strategy on your part.
And you've been in all of them.
I have, for sure. Started Midwest, then West, and now East Coast. So getting to see the differences and similarities across the country. But in terms of when I started, actually was in Michigan, where I grew up, and excuse me. I never really was outwardly a singer, although I always felt like I could sing, and I was kind of a shy guy. But I picked up trombone and when I was 12, played for a few years, so I learned how to read and got very acclimated with music. But then when I was 17 in high school, there was a variety show, and I overheard some guys playing Led Zeppelin. And so I walked in and I said, "Hey, you guys, sounds great. What are you doing?" "Oh yeah, we're going to audition for the variety show." I said, "Okay, cool. So who's your singer?" "We don't have one." I said, "Well, I'll sing for you." And they looked at me like I had two heads, like, "You sing?" I go, yeah, I sing. So I said, "You got a mic?" And they're like, "Yeah, we do." And so I just started singing, and I think we were doing Over the Hills and Far Away. And that was a lot of fun. So they said, "Okay, cool, you're in." We did the audition, and then we ended up performing, and that was sort of how it all started. And then the rest is history. You know, I had a band throughout college and taught myself instruments along the way, mainly so I could write music, because I had all these song ideas and no way to, get them down on paper or get them recorded. So I figured I'd better get to work on figuring out, trying to master some tools in terms of getting my song ideas out, and especially considering I was involved with a lot of original material, original bands writing songs over the years. So it was good to be able to, give my 2 cents in terms of the songwriting process. And as the singer, I was looked upon to write most of the lyrics, and so that was something that was always a little daunting. But I always felt, looking back at the lyrics that I write, I always thought that they were pretty good. And I was a bit of a perfectionist, have always been with the music and the lyrics, although I think the music comes more easily to me than the lyrics have.
What comes first, lyrics or music in your case?
Music probably 95% of the time comes first, and then I'll later put the words to it. And I think, although with this album, one night I sat down. This is, if you recall, I guess it was about 3 years ago when there was that silent march in Tehran when they had the vote stolen from them.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago. And I just was kind of ticked off. I'm watching the news. I was watching CNN, and I had a pad of paper and a pen, and I just started writing. Ended up writing about 4 or 5, I guess you could say they were poems, that I later retooled as lyrics for songs. And two of the poems turned into lyrics for 2 songs on this album. So. There are those times when I just write and it's just a stream of consciousness and it comes out. Whereas, other times it's, okay, I've got this great song. Oh, God, now I got to write lyrics for it. So I try to think of things that are interesting to me at that time or things that I'm feeling and, and then eventually it's usually something that comes to me when I least expect. It's like, oh, yeah, that's a great idea for that song. And, you can't just put any lyric to any song. It's got to fit the vibe. So, and I also, but what I'm noticing more and more is as I'm writing a song, the melody will come to me, and then certain words will come out. So it could just be the hook is a particular phrase, and at the time I'm not really sure what that phrase means, and then I give it some thought, and I sort of like, oh yeah, okay, we can kind of go with that. So like, there's a song on the album called "Let's Get Out of Our Own Way," and and I'm thinking, these words are coming. Why must we cheat? Why must we lie? Why? And that was, I don't know where it came from. It just fit. It was just sort of phonetically kind of going into the song, and I thought, oh, okay, this is very much like the last relationship I was in.
Oh.
So we were breaking up. So so it was, towards the end when things weren't really working out. So so that's kind of how that happens. So sometimes they just sort of come out of thin air, and they're very, yeah.
Well, don't feel so bad. Yesterday I was chatting with a songwriter on the radio, and she told me that sometimes it's like 5 years between start of a song and not knowing what to do with it, and all of a sudden the idea hits her 5 years later. Okay, I found it. Now I know why I'm doing this song. It's just like the rest of the idea will just drop into her head later on.
I hope she wasn't actually working on it for 5 years.
No, she found other things to do in between. So it sounds like a lot of the songwriting you do comes from real-life experiences. Is it always the case, or do you get other ideas that are maybe not so autobiographical or not so current events related?
It seems like it's kind of one or the other. I'd have to think about that. But, I guess in some cases it's a lyric that, like I think of a couple of blues lyrics that I wrote that didn't really pertain to anything in general to my life, although looking at them, I've definitely experienced things. It says, my friend Amy once told me, she said, every lyric you write is about you, whether you know it or not. And I said, oh, okay, I never really thought of it that way. And so she said, yeah, it's somehow coming from you. Something influenced you in your life that you came up with this. So I think if I'm talking about current events or politics, that's less about me, but certainly it's about me in terms of my point of view. So, yeah, I'd have to give that some thought, but I think really it does come from, it is basically, what's happening in my life at the time, how I'm feeling about things, whether it's personal or political or social.
Interesting. That makes sense. Whatever you're dealing with would filter into the music. Now, a few minutes ago, we were talking about getting started, and aside from Led Zeppelin, who else would you consider among your musical influences?
It's vast, but I'll just start listing off some big ones like Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind and Fire, progressive rock bands like Genesis and Yes, Steely Dan, and then moving. Let's see, not as, I guess, closer to moving forward, I guess I should say, bands like the Red Hot Chili Peppers and 24/7 Spies, Todd Rundgren. Oh gosh, too many to list. The Police.
Yeah.
Great.
Grunge bands, Soundgarden, STP, Jamawokee, 07. Man, the list just goes on.
Now, in your music, I was listening to several of your tracks over the last day or so, and I heard some stylistic similarities to a wide range of musicians as well, maybe different than your list, but I heard in your music, I heard a little bit of Jack Johnson, Lenny Kravitz, and even a little bit of the band Chicago. Now, does that make sense, or am I just full of beans?
All great. No, it does. All great artists. I hear Lenny Kravitz a lot, actually.
Okay.
I get that comparison, and I know I get it. Like when people say that, and I think that's such a great compliment because I think Kravitz is an amazing musician, and the similarities between us too is we're both multi-instrumentalists and we both write and perform and produce our own music. So it's not only stylistically similar, but just the way we approach things. So that might have something to do with it. Really soulful guy he is. And then Jack Johnson, I could see that from. I actually haven't listened to a lot of Jack Johnson, but I think the acoustic vibe and probably the vocal range and so forth. I could see the similarities there.
Yeah, maybe on some of your some of the songs where you have smoother vocals, that's kind of where I got that from.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And then Chicago was, love Chicago. They were a fantastic band, and with the horns and such, I could definitely see the comparisons there.
Well, with starting out in other bands and then starting your own band, is the music you play now different from the music you played with the other bands? And, how has it evolved?
Yes. So the music that I was playing, let me just take my first real original band, I guess I would say, when I was in my early 20s, called Jamawokee. And it definitely was different because it's a 4-piece writing group, so their ideas coming from 4 corners, and my ideas were only 25% of it, even though most of the lyrics were mine. But even then, my lyrics come from a different place now because I'm a different person than I was